Hi everybody, hope you're having a good conference. I'm Doug Platt. I've been with People Inc. for 30 years, 1 month, 5 days, 7 hours. Never used to be this technical until I got kind of into the museum and curator type of business, but keeping track of things and keeping track of time is what we do. Yes, I joined the museum project in November of 1999. I don't know how many of you guys remember what the human service world budget was back in 1999, but there was a huge sucking sound of funds out of the agency. And I was asked if I had room on my plate to take on this project. My plate, I had nothing but a plate, you know. So I started with the museum project that actually started a year before as a small group. The museum itself was based upon an idea of our CEO and President Emeritus, James Bowles. He was teaching an Introduction to Developmental Disabilities course at the University of Buffalo. Wanted a place to send his students for information, and there really wasn't one. So Jim being the way he is, he decided to start a project with me to the museum. So prior to being with the museum, I graduated from the State University College at Fredonia with a bachelor's degree in studio art, painting, lithography, life drawing, sculpture, all that other stuff. And I minored in literature, pretty much existential literature, Russian literature, modern American novels and classical modern. So basically, I got out of school with no employable job skills other than the fact that I'd been a farm boy my entire life. So I was from that kind of thing. So my brother-in-law was just leaving a position at a group home. He said, "You should go apply to this group home." So I went and applied at the group home. The guy that hired me, Lester Kelly, was a really great guy. He goes, "What experience do you have with mental retardation, Doug?" I said, "Well, I graduated high school from Newfane, New York, and I just graduated college from Fredonia." So for some reason, he hired me anyway. So I started out part-time working with 10 individuals who lived in a group home. It was a wide range of individuals. And one of the best ways to get to know the individuals, my boss said, was to read their case history files. So I don't know how many of you guys have gone through people's case histories and everything, but that was really actually a good way to get to know where they came from, what they're up to, what the diagnoses were, and things like that. So that kind of was my introduction to that. I eventually ran that group home. Then I went and worked at a place called Central Park Plaza Day Treatment Center. A happy little place where 167 different individuals with MRDE at the time came to do their day activities. And then eventually I got a chance to be project coordinator for the Kids on the Block puppet troupe that used to go out in the community and teach people about differences with 3.5-foot tall hand and rod puppets. So, they're really cool. And then eventually I landed at the museum. So that's how I kind of got to the museum. But you guys are all here to talk about taking stock of your history, talking about preserving your organizational and chapter history. So hopefully this fairly brief presentation will help. Ooh, how do I next? This way.
Whose computer?
You want to identify what your milestones are. So you see I've cleverly used a lot of material from the ARC. So it's a national organization on mental retardation. It has a rich history of proven legends. So you can see that it came out of a time that there was still the R word used in some of your data. So you want to identify what your milestones are, when did they happen, who was involved. I'm really glad there's this talk about fundraising and relationship building and stewardship, all that good stuff just before, because those are your milestones. when you identify how you were created, who your founders are, who helped support you, and what neat stuff did you do? I mean, you know, the pickpocket / curator in me wants to take one of everything that's over on that table over there. All the different stuff that says art of, or your different names and things like that. I mean, it's really interesting. I like the posters and things that are laying out in front that talk about Awareness Month and the different things you do. So you really want to get a grip on where you were, where you started, and what are the significant events in your agency's history. The next question kind of relates to the question I was asked that invited me here. You got all this stuff. Where did all this stuff come from? God. Just for the record, this picture, it was donated to the museum by the West Seneca Developmental Center. This happy little picture was taken in the 1960s, about 1967. And it shows Laundry Day at the Big House. What's really neat about West Seneca is that we have a really good relationship between people and the parent company of our museum and the director at the time of West Seneca. And he said that, we're going to be closing down. Want to come and take a look around and maybe take some stuff if you want? You know, I said, okay. So we went over twice, filled up a van twice, and then drove it all back. So I know that this picture is from, well, its ID number would have to start 2008.277. Currently 1 through 508. So I've only documented 508 things I got from West Seneca so far. But the reason I put this picture up is, yeah, it might seem overwhelming at first, all the things you have, but, you know, it's just like when I used to do Kids on the Block presentation, one of the characters was a girl who had Down syndrome, Ellen Jane Peterson, and people asked her how she learned to do things. She goes, I do what my dad tells me. He says, learning things is like eating a pizza. You don't eat the whole thing at once. You eat it one piece at a time. So I want you to adopt the philosophy that, yeah, this job's big, but if you think of it as a pizza and you only eat a little bit at a time, then you can nibble away at what the big task is until you finally get to the point where you can manage it. You want to ask yourself, as you go through this body of stuff that you've got, what you think is important. There's going to be things in the boxes and the attic and the corner and the basement and who knows what else, or in a closet that might be important. It might not be important. You're going to have to take a careful look at what you have, and again, I would do it a little bit at a time. Think about what makes your organization special. But every organization's special, right? You really want to think about if your mission statement is something different than what the national arc is. You want to think about not only that. You want to think about when you were born. You want to think about who founded you. You want to think about where you're from, because your locale has a lot to do with how your organization grows up. It's just like, what's your hometown? It's like, so what is your organization's hometown? You look there, and you'll probably find a lot of different things where other organizations would help you, learn your steps from crawling to walking to running to going door to door asking for funding. So think of it that way. Think about what makes your organization special. And who's going to clean up this mess? You're going to have to find people within your organization that are willing to help sort, label, catalog, put an order, put a sense of order to this, all this different stuff here. Okay. Hey, look, NYSARC. I have this picture up because I always have a couple of different reasons for things. One, love it. I love this. It's like when I grow up, right? This is little Richie Allen Barnes from Los Alamos. NYSARC poster child of the year. Kid of the year for a few years. For the National Association for Retarded Children. Because retarded children can be helped. Don't let the archaic language, scare you or make you not want to embrace it. You guys are NYSARC. You're, one of the old chapters of the fledgling National Association for Retarded Children. The other thing is that this guy is pretty cool because he shows up in a lot of different places in my archive. So that's something that you want to look for as you go through, especially your newsletters, your annual reports, and photographs. If you have people that keep showing up fairly consistently, they're either camera hogs or they're fairly important. So what you want to do is look for patterns in your archival material. If a person keeps showing up for some reason, you might want to make a note of that. And that's kind of a cool reason to have this. Wow, Children Limited, published by the National Association for Retarded Children, a nonprofit organization of parents and friends of the retarded. August 1961. NYSARC admits its 1,000th unit. So, hey, you guys got a lot of company. Even in 61, there's 1,000 different chapters, it seems like, unless this unit something different. The other thing is they're having an 11th annual conference, October 11th through 14th. So, this, I like this particular newsletter, magazine, newspaper. It was published by the National Association. It's got a lot of great information in it, but it's also a great example of what happens to paper over time. So it's 1961, Kennedy's president. I'm 2 years old. But we got a lot of fray around the edges. It's being discolored. And, and mostly it's because it's paper. Okay? There's some things about paper you want to know as you go through your boxes of stuff. Paper can last a long time if it's treated correctly. Paper doesn't like sunlight. Paper doesn't like getting wet. Paper doesn't like people pawing away at it roughly because it'll tear. So you want to look at the older things in your piles and try to determine whether or not they're worth saving. Because quite frankly, this is really neat for me to have because I look at the broad spectrum of disability history. You guys are looking at your organization. Not every piece of paper or every memo or every file is going to really probably make the cut for you guys. So you want things that are to some degree unique and in fairly good shape. For me, this would be in poor shape because I have to, when I catalog the items in our collection, I have to give them a description. I give them a variety of descriptions. We can get into that later, but a couple takeaways from this slide. Yeah, there was already national conventions for NYSARC going on at the time. And yeah, they had a focus on children. And yeah, they also had ideas about, life insurance under the NYSARC protection plan. And they had featured speakers. And, so look at your materials and see how it relates to what was going on in your organization. Hey, the Chautauqua County chapter of the New York State Association for Retarded Children. Are you guys here today?
I don't think Broom Tioga's here, no.
This is from about 1975, I believe. But this also was one of the pieces I got out of the West Seneca State School, West Seneca Developmental Center, the session.
Jeff probably
So
doesn't even know.
I know it's 2008.277 dot something, but you guys have probably produced brochures for the different programs that your individual organization, maybe you have something innovative. Maybe you borrowed or adopted ideas for programming. Maybe you partnered with other people to provide, care for children or education or events or you name it. Think about how your programming is documented and then marketed to the public. So as as marketing communication people, you really do also help document the history of your organization by saying, look, we got this bright, shiny new program. Here's our pamphlet, here's our brochure, here's the service we're offering. And they also are neat because they can often reflect the style of the time. What a sexy font. Cool layout. What neat, artwork. But now it's pretty much replaced with, stock photos of people. So you want to think about what kind of things you do locally. So we went from national to local. And that's another thing to look at when you're going through your box. You probably have stuff that's nationally based. That's good to have. You might want to separate that out unless it names you in it, which would be special, right? Like if you've got national recognition for your program or for your particular art for some reason, that's always great to keep. If it's just the same thing that's ubiquitous, right? It's everywhere across the country, maybe not, unless it's in really good condition and it's something important to your organization. One of the people that gave me grant money, well, they didn't give it to me. They gave it to my program that I was involved with, the Kids on the Block program. They gave us money to buy a couple puppets. And the people that gave it to us was the Children's Guild. I said, oh, that's neat. And I was already doing the museum program, and I had already gotten this. And so I sent that to them as a thank you for, we get an official grant acceptance, so we slap each other on the back and shaking hands and taking pictures and stuff. But when I sent this to her director, she was just gassed. She really, really enjoyed that. Maybe didn't enjoy much the fact that it was called the Crippled Children's Guild at the time. But this is one of their earliest reports. Annual reports are a great source. Big events, the big things that happen that year, right? This program, you open it up, you see a list of donors, you see a list of activities, you see their summer house that they built. You see a lot of different things. So annual reports, great for the year's big events. They're also great on pictures, and what that can do is help you cross-reference pictures and annual reports to maybe stray pictures in that, 2-foot of Polaroid pile of pictures lying in a corner someplace. Things like this may actually help you identify photographs. Annual reports are also great because they're chronologically based, so you can take them and separate them out and say, I'm going to find every annual report in this closet full of stuff, and I'm going to put it in order. So that's one way to approach it. It's also a great way to see who was president, who was running your organization, who your board of trustees were, who your big donors were, what innovative new programs, so it's really, these are great little time capsules in themselves. So these are the kind of things you definitely want to hang on to. Anybody from rehabilitation here? This is a newsletter.
What's the rehabilitation?
I don't think that's one of our chapters.
Oh.
I don't think.
Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah.
Cattaraugus, isn't it?
Is that Cattaraugus?
Cattaraugus,
No.
isn't it?
Yeah, the rehab
Says Cattaraugus.
I think it is. That might be.
It's a great
Yeah, there
resource
are.
for internal organization, info, and history. Again, it's arranged chronologically. You got news, services, program, and people. And every once in a while, you get a small history, a little bite of history. So it's kind of neat that these are definitely the kind of things you also want to save.
And I heard talk about, it's like, well, all these young kids these days, they just don't have time to read newsletters. They have to sit down, concentrate on something for more than 5 seconds, turn the page.
That's the other thing about newsletters and annual reports. Again, they're typically paper. So as you go through your stuff and you find, these paper-based materials, you want to gauge the condition in. You probably find that you might have more than one copy of them. I would advise you to keep the best copy. If it's maybe has somebody's writing on it, that only makes it even more important. It's kind of neat, especially if it was like, oh, this is the newsletter that our president signed off on, or maybe somebody that was notable in the organization signed off. So having a mark or having writing on it doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. It doesn't make it pristine, but perfection. If the world were perfect, NYSARC wouldn't exist. The world's just not perfect, so don't look for perfection. So again, newsletters, try to arrange them chronologically, and that does a couple of things for you. It makes it easy to access by what era you're looking for, because if you want to preserve your history, you got to put it in some type of order, and then you're going to want to access it later. So if you have things laid out, kind of as time goes, according to chronology, people and time's kind of straight, thing. You want to stick to that. It makes it easier to go through. Photographs. This is UPI telephoto. It had to be captioned and dated, right? So it's from 11/20/1964. Hey, it's Bobby Kennedy and Richard Allen Barnes. What a big shot he is. So Richie, again, with cowboy motif. Bobby Kennedy, this would have been
Right before
a
he
year
right
a year and 2 months before he goes to Willowbrook and calls the place a snake pit. Right? So, and you can see the old retarded children can be helped and NYSARC stuff in the background. So that's what makes this photograph great. Think about the photographs that you find in the box and, laundry hamper, or however your materials are coming to you. What information do you have on your photographs? I have some really cool photographs in our collection that I know what they are because people actually wrote stuff on the back of photographs in the old days. They say who it is, what day, what the event was. So photographs can be very helpful if they have information on them. They can also be very helpful if they're next to a particular building, right? It's like, oh, that's our old headquarters. Or that's before we moved, or before we had it renovated, or before we had extra parking, added, or fill in the blanks. So photographs are a great way to document moments in time. You'll also want to think about what your organization's privacy policies are as you go through your materials. So, there might be photographs of individuals receiving services doing different things. So you might want to check with human resources or somebody else, or find a way to see if this is something I can use in a display, or if it's something that we could use in a retrospective, if you're doing a retrospective of your agency's history. You just want to make sure that you respect the rights of the people that you are providing services to. And photographs hate light.
They just do, the way they're built, especially the older ones, they're the blob of chemicals laying on a piece of paper that's been, exposed. And there's a chemical reaction that causes photographs to appear. I mean, it's like the old Polaroids and shaking around and stuff, right? So, photographs are great to look at for a limited amount of time in regular light. The worst light possible is fluorescent lighting. A, it drives you crazy. Okay? B, it destroys everything it touches, especially paper and especially photographs. So you want to be concerned about the environment you examine and keep your artifacts in, and you want to make sure that you have a good environment to support what's left of whatever photographs, annual reports, newsletters that you have. Okay? Booklets. Look, it's another NYSARC booklet. It's National Association for Targeted Children, Park Avenue, New York, right? So what'll happen to my child? Had something or another, work through it. So again, did your organization produce any booklets? Maybe a program of services? That, is another way to look at what your agency's history is. It also typically will identify who's running the program, who they're offered to, what location, what area, so you can get the idea about, your history that way. Booklets are really great because they fit in folders really, really well. That keeps them out of the light. It gives them support. And it also gives you a way to put them in order, either by topic or by year, or whether they're national, or whether they're New York State or regional or specific to your organization. So you want to think about that, and it's something that I know that a lot of different agencies do produce their own print material, either for education, public education, or promotion of programs they offer. So booklets can be very, very helpful. If you find them in your collection of stuff, then you might want to set them aside and definitely know, again, what you have. Angel Unaware by Dale Rogers Evans, with an introduction by Norman Vincent Peale. In 1951, I believe, Dale had a baby, Robin, a little mongoloid baby. She would have been called at the time. Cool there, right? And she only lived 2 years. So, unfortunately, the progress of through time of people that have trisomy, 21 or whatever you want to call it, Down syndrome, Up syndrome, whatever, that, there were a lot of kids passing away early. But we have people that live longer and because of changes in medical treatment, or maybe they're just, getting better environmental care. When I started at People Services to the Mentally Retarded and Developmentally Disabled Adult, Inc., back in 1985, one of the guys that actually got me hooked into the human services profession was a 60-year-old Polish guy with Down syndrome. So, what does Angel Unaware have to do with anything? Well, one, it's a book. You might have books in your collection that are important or mark something. They might have been signed by the author. This one has a really horrible dust jacket on it, but it's got great graphics on it, so I kept it. Roy and Dale are great. Roy donated. The profits from this book still go to NYSARC. They still do. I don't know if it's in 20 or 30th printing or something like that, but hey, Angel Unaware, who are your angels? You guys probably just went over this in your how do we raise funds? How do we generate capital for our organization? Think about who your angels are. Your founders, your donors, your community partners, the people you hang out with, right? These are the people that are going to be important parts of your organization's history. So look for signs of them throughout the stuff that you're sorting. Okay.
look, it's hope for a brighter future because retarded children can be helped. Much different than the posters you have out there. But it's the 70s, so everything kind of looked like this back in the 70s, from what I remember.
Is that one of ours?
That's our stamp.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it, yeah.
It's a great stamp. Got that hopeful little kid getting a helpful hand from an adult. The other thing about this poster, I got it. It was all folded up. You probably come across some stuff in your dustbin of history or cardboard box that's folded and everything. Don't let that scare you to open it up and look at it. You want to judge, what condition it is. If it's unique enough, definitely keep it. But just like people, things that are under a lot of stress, folded, right? They need to relax. So you want to open them up and let them relax. This poster is 40 by 30 inches. So I was going to write size matter up here, but size does matter. Because things that are bigger take up a lot of space. So when you're looking through your collection of stuff, think about how much space it's going to take up. Also think about where and how you can store it, if it's important to you. And again, you always want to go back to that, is this thing important to me? So
I think was that poster issued by the post office?
in
Yeah, down
conjunction,
in the lower right
I have it listed as a...
To see the post
NAR.
office symbol in the bottom?
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah,
wondering.
it was done at the... if I had the catalog description with it, I could tell you the
I've
print.
never seen it, yeah.
Well, it's in conjunction with the post office because they're issuing panes of stamps.
Right.
So it's
Yep.
an official...
That's pretty cool.
How do you protect that for the future, a document like that, a poster like that?
That poster I have unfolded in a larger than 40 by 30 folder in a oversized poster box. And I have 3 oversized poster boxes. They got a lot of different stuff in there that's just too big to fit in regular containers, including, I have a blues pictorial. No, is it blue? Yeah. Anyway, I have this newspaper article about this great new fun private asylum for idiots in Beaver, Massachusetts. And I got another. Oh, I know the blues pictorial one. It's about this new great private school for imbeciles in Harlem. It's run by James P. Richards. It's from about 1856. So no matter how old it is, if you keep it protected, out of the light, and supported, you can have documents that last for a long time. Hey, look at this groovy benefit performance for the National Association for Retarded Children. It's got Count Basie, Shelley Berman, Maurice Chevalier, Ella Fitzgerald, Connie Francis, Stan Getz, Debbie Reynolds, David Rose, Johnny Tillotson, and Jonathan Winters. You guys were talking about benefits earlier too in the fundraising. This is a great document of a benefit for the national organization. Your local benefits, your local galas, your parties, your sock hops, even your illegal drinking parties you seem to throw are great sources of information about your race. Here's the problem. This is a vinyl record album. Right, so you got to play it with your close and play, or your high fidelity, record player. Not a lot of people have them. I don't. I have records I haven't listened to in years because all the needles went bad and my turntables, blah blah blah. Then I moved to that high definition 8-track tapes I had for a while. I have some great. I had a Steve Miller, the Joker 8-track tape in quadraphonic. Really great. Then I got to cassette players, cassette tape decks. Those were the greatest. I got a bunch of those. I recorded a lot of my own music on this Foztec 4-track cassette tape recorder so I could have 4 ideations of me playing guitar badly and warbling that can all mix together at the end, right? So talk about this.
I love my cassette.
One of the things that I did with this album is I had a friend who worked in the office with me. I was really lucky working in the office I did at the museum because I had 2 grant writers with me. Grant writers.
That's how they.
Program's best friend. One of the guys, Dave Roberts, had a great turntable, but he also had a computer with a CD wave file program that he could transfer old media, obsolescent media, to fairly, accessible media. That's going to be one of the things you want to think about. In our collection, we have, yes, record albums, we have VHS tapes, we have DVD tapes, DVD discs. We also have 16 millimeter and 8 millimeter acetate reel. So we're in the process of looking for money to transfer our old media into new accessible media because some of the stuff you have is obsolescent, but there might be a way for you to transfer it into some form that you can record it to some degree. So that's something that we all struggle with. So that's why that particular. Hey, look, we have a logo. We're the Project of People Incorporated. That means we have a very benevolent parent company. But like all, human service agencies, they want their kids to grow up and, live on their own kind of. At the museum, we use Gaylord archival products. They're designed to extend the life of the artifacts of our history and our collection, and they're not cheap. We also use Past Perfect Museum software. That's how we track our stuff. Past Perfect, the basic program for Past Perfect software, which is one of the preferred museum-level database system, is basic program for $870. If you want annual support, add another, $345 on it. If you want training, $86. You can easily see that, if you went this route, it's going to cost you, the initial grand plus a couple $100 a year. Okay. And what's so good about it is this. Hey, yeah, that was a 10-cent stamp printed by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, Washington, D.C. American Banknote Company. I just happened to pick this one as the catalog record. But this is what our archival data collection looks like on Past Perfect. And it's fairly easy to learn once you use it. What collection? It's Disability, Museum of Disability Collection. What's its number? It's 2001 60.1. I bought it off of eBay. Here's probably one of the most important things. Home location, upstairs, shelf B, document standard box 5, folder 37. Near and dear to my heart, it's 2001.60.1. Scope and content abstract, it says what it is, basically. It has text on MRDD history by Marion Smith, president of NYSARC. There's an image management section and feature to it where I scan everything we have and I upload it to this. This does 2 things. One, it keeps it out of the light, keeps my grubby little fingers off it every other day, and it allows me to look at it, reproduce it, send it to people as a JPEG or whatever. These different things talk about, probably the most important one would be conditions of access and use. It's in English, luckily. Right? People, classification, subject, search terms. That's when you could list, I'm sure this one would say Marion. Well, actually it would say Smith, Marion in the people section. That way, if I said
I got anything by Marion Smith in this collection, I can type her name in, anything public comes, so.
This is one of the things, this is something that's burned into back of my retina, because I look at this stuff every day. I always have this up and open. So that's one way to go. Another way to go is to use paper-based Word document. This is our archival catalog sheet. You fill this in by hand, you can fill it in by paper, you can type it up. The only problem is it's one of those PDFs that you have to type it up, print it, and you can't really save it. So we have a number of binders that will have each different article of our collection written up in hand, by hand. So. Does it sound redundant? You bet it's redundant. It's from the Department of Redundancy Department. Okay? And that's because having multiple systems of information is important when you're trying to figure out what's important to keep. I'm playing this PowerPoint that I made off a flash drive. I brought another flash drive with the same one presentation on it. And in case that didn't work, I also have it on one of these things, writable CD. So there's all different ways to store information. Flash drives are really neat, but they're small and they get lost. A dog will chew them up or something. Same with these, but these are ways to store massive amounts of information, data, images, things like that. Right? They don't take up a lot of space. Storing maybe your fragile stuff digitally, or stuff that it's like, I like this document, but Ohio. You want to handle it once, right? Could be grubby, could be moldy, could be chewed up, could be something living on it or near it. But it's important. So if you scan it or photocopy it, then at least you'll have it, and then the nastiness is gone, but you still have the information. So that's one reason that we try to obsess on multiple. Preservation materials. We're all in human service agencies, right? We're all about breaking down barriers, right? Increasing access, right? Guess what? If you're going to document your history, you're going to have to put up barriers, and you're going to have to reduce levels of access, at least for parts of the time, because preservation is about building a barrier between the environment that wants to do harm to your records and your poor little record. What did it ever do? All it ever did was document what went on at a staff meeting or a gala or this neat, innovative record. It's just sitting there, and then the mean old sun wants to bleach it. Somebody wants to walk by with a cup of Starbucks coffee and spill it all over it and destroy it. People want to look at it and, spaz out and rip it in half because they have anger management issues. So it really, preserving your materials is all about creating a safe environment. And there's a few ways to do that. We have document boxes. This is a letter size or standard document box. Gaylord barrier board, deep lid, letter size, archival document case. $10.90 a piece.
Are
Legal
those
size,
acid-free?
11.
I'm sorry, are those acid-free ones?
Yep. It says so right here, right on the bottom. So what these do is they don't interact with your paper-based documents. What do we put inside here?
Folders.
Folders, they don't look very different than your regular folder, other than they have a nice creamy color to them. Okay.
These are Gaylord Cream pH 8 to 8.5 buffered 3% calcium carbonate 10-point pass PAT reinforced file folders. $46.25 a pack.
Are you buying these in any special place or?
I buy them from Gaylord Archival. Gaylord Brothers. You can look them up on the internet. I left actually a contact material for the museum over on that table, as well as a number of my business cards. So these are a great way to protect one layer of protection, the folders, the second layer of protection. Envelopes, but they're not any regular kind of envelope. They're Melanex, which is a polyester envelope with egg seal, 8x10 pack. It's $23.25. This is the 5x8. It's $14.75 for 10 of them. Okay. So we're talking some, really pretty good money here. Here's what I do with all my postcards and photographs. I take them. I say, "Oh, this is really cool." Then I give it a number. And if this was going into the collection today, I would write on it 2015.22.1. That means I got it in 2015. It's the 22nd item that I documented this year, and there's only one. That's, it's another really intensive listing system. The reason we do that is because lists help preserve, order, and they also become easily searchable. So those are basically 3 levels of protection for one object that I brought. What? You're not a museum? You don't have to become a museum or an archivist or a curator. Really, all you have to do is to still preserve your heritage. You need to know what you have. So you're going to do a survey of these boxes or whatever, crate, dumpster, I don't know. You need to know what you want to keep. So you want to set some priorities on what's really important. That's, again, you got to figure out what's important to your agency. Okay? You need to organize what you want to keep. And that's putting it in some degree of order that makes sense to you. It doesn't have to be this, fancy museum jargon, speak or anything. Come up with a system that makes sense to you or whoever's running it. You need to store your materials. You need to have a place to put them. You need to have things that will protect them. You need to have a place to put them. You need to know a way. You need a way to know what is where. So, you need a way to know what is where. Yeah, you got to know where your stuff is. You got to be able to find it, right? It's like get all this stuff in all these boxes. But if you want to find something to use it to commemorate an event or an anniversary or whatever, you got to be able to find it. So you got to have finding tools. So that's pretty much the reason I picked up this battle fatigue picture as part of our war and disability exhibit, because all this can seem really daunting. It can leave you looking like this at the end of the day. It's like, how did I get into this? How am I going to get out of it? Will I get out of this alive feeling? Once you start documenting, you'll be fine if you have some, help and you have some type of system. So, another analogy, baby steps. Okay. I was given these baby shoes by a woman who was born with a true leg length discrepancy. You can see regular, she got these when she was about 2.5 inch leg discrepancy. Later, her shoes had built up about that big. When she was 16, she had these big disco inside. Then when she was 16, her doctor, Dr. Robert Warner, he recommended above-the-knee amputation. It changed her life. She could finally dance with the boys. She was so happy. She thought it was the best thing that ever
But she gave me all her shoes, not all of them, 3 sets. And she gave me her Woman of the Year, JC's plaque that she got. She became a member of the museum. That's why I use her shoes as baby steps. So, here's some of the equipment you might want to think about having to start your documentation of your history. A computer, it can be, whatever, maybe your organization has a computer or two laying around. Maybe they have one they can, say that, go ahead, who's ever doing this project, you can use it. It would be good to have Word on it. It would also be good to have Excel on it, because that way you can type things up, record information, also make lists, right? So if you could, it'd be nice to have a scanner attached so that you can take the piece of information, whether it's a photo or a document or cover of a newsletter. All these things I'm showing you are things either I have photographed or scanned. So the scanner, how about a camera? A camera might help. If you're photographing objects or stuff like those neat bags or the shirt, or you could have a shot of somebody wearing a shirt or something, that has your name and logo, and maybe it's changed over time, that type of thing. A ruler, a yardstick, tape measure, yeah. You're going to want file folders. Yes, you want boxes, but you also might want printer paper too. To print out your documents, but also, I'm not going to go back and show you how pricey all that stuff is, right? That it costs, right? So, what's kind of neat about modern printer paper is that it's relatively acid-free. It'll last for a long time for the documents that you print. And also, you don't have to be like an origami type of guy or anything to take it and fold it. And it's like, wow, what does this do? This separates your paper-based document from the mean outside world, and it also allows you to, if you want, label what it is in pencil. Right? So I could say postcard of NARC, the kegger, that may or may not have been legal because volunteers are serving, right? So you could put whatever information you want on this. Then you could put this inside just a regular folder like you get from Eaton's. So, and what that does, it's a second layer of protection. And then you could put that folder inside even an iron mount or some other box like with a handle, a lid, anything. Cardboard is like one of the reason these boxes from Gaylord and other archival places cost so much is they're acid-free. Boxes that you can see the brown on them, regular shipping, they're just loaded with acid. But, if you're going to decide, well, I'm not a museum, do I really need museum quality stuff? It's like, well, no, you probably don't. You just want to protect it the best you can at each level. So that's why even printer paper is a barrier. Inside a regular folder that's labeled, and then you have folder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to how many others, right? The other cool thing about these Iron Mountain document storage boxes is that one way they're for letter size, the other way for legal document size. So you have a variety of sizes of material you can store inside them. The other thing is that they're stackable. So as you stack them, they take up space. And, space is always important. So these are some of the things you might want to think about having when you start. You're also going to want to have storage space. Again, picture
This is not the type of storage area you want, okay? This picture is also from the West Seneca State School collection. I know that this is the bathroom that's being modeled in what was the Rome State School colony house that was home to the working girls in East Aurora. It was a domestic colony house. High-functioning, feeble-minded women who were trained domestics would go out to the community, and they would do laundry, ironing, house cleaning, and dishwashing for pay, and they would go back to this house and live. This was our first form of group homes in the community, and our first form of community placement for vocational activity for people with development.
What year is that?
That picture is taken about 1963. East Aurora Colony House opened up, I believe, in 18 or 19. So try to set up a space, try to get a space to start your mini archive, your project archive, right? Not in the basement or attic if at all possible. Guard against water, excessive particulates, dust, dirt, grime, pests. Guard against wild variations in temperature and humidity. So maybe you want to have a dehumidifier running someplace here. Nothing stored on the floor, if possible, because, accidents always happen. Sometimes there's floods and leaking. Somebody, drops something. And try to get shelving or racks or bookcases to hold the boxes, because your box, needs someplace to live too. It's like it's a system. It's the box goes in the shelf, and the shelf holds the box, and the box holds the folders, and the folders hold the document, and the document's protected by another layer. So you have all these layers of protection, but it's also another way to organize what you have and know where it is. So you want to maybe try to create some type of finding system. This is just a cut and paste of a Word doc we have that we use to reference what's in this box. It's Vinyl Albums Box number 1. Not a very, creative title, but it actually tells you exactly what it is. It's for our vinyl record albums, right? And it's the only first one. Look at item number 3. It's the National Association for Retarded Children's Present the Benefit Performance. This is how I found that to, look at it. I looked up on Past Perfect. Past Perfect told me what box it's in, and I went and got it, right? Here's the other thing I want you to notice from this particular document. Item 1, John Fitzgerald Kennedy Memorial Album. Item number 7, John Fitzgerald Kennedy Memorial Album. One was a purchase acquisition, one was a donation. Sometimes it's okay to have a couple things, just as long as you know which one's which. So it doesn't mean that one's any more valuable than the other, but it does mean they're the same piece of history. They just come from different sources, so that gives them slightly different significance, historically speaking. And also, again, it's okay to have doubles of stuff. Triples, not as much, maybe, but it's okay to have backups. So you might have a box. You might label your Iron Mountain box, your agency's name or acronym, your favorite acronym for your agency. Annual reports, right? You could say these are our newsletters, are in this box, right? Or our photographs are in this box in order. So label your boxes, make a list of what's inside. And it's okay to have, labels on the outside. You can write on the boxes if they're little Iron Mountain or other document storage boxes. But you want to have, be able to read what's in them so you know what's in them, so you can find your stuff when you want to go find it if you can use it. Again, we're in human services, so we're not about labels, but you got to set that aside when you're documenting your agency's histories, because it's all about labeling things. You got to know what something is. You got to know its properties. You got to know where it's from. It's almost that's why I chose this particular magazine.
It's on dating, relationships, romance, right? So it's like,
Where are you from? What's your sign? What's your number? That's all the information that you actually need when you're documenting what you have. It's also the information you need, and you need to have when you're organizing your stuff. So this magazine cover tells you who it is and what's inside. Look at that. It's got a title and it's got a list of contents. It's not every word of every article or every little thing, probably not ads either. But it gives you can look at that magazine cover and you can tell pretty much, this is what's in this. This is what's in here. Wow. That's what your list should do. Your box label should do the same thing. Have an identity, contents, possibly dates. Like, here's our annual reports from 1959, right? Or 1954. Can't remember which year that's mentioned. Through what? 1960. The next box will have 1960 to 1970, that type of thing. If you have a whole complete run of annual reports, you can label your boxes like that. Same with newsletters. You can say these are our newsletters for the year 1961, 1962, 1963, all in this box. Your list will do the same. In as finding aids, they will increase the life of your material because you do preservation for a couple reasons. One is to know what your history is, but it's also to protect your material. And by knowing where your material is and what it is, it actually increases its lifespan because you're not rummaging through all the stuff all the time, creating stresses on the physical nature of that document. That's another reason to scan or photograph things too. OH sheet, anybody want to guess what that is?
OHEC or something? The heck?
OG heck.
No, too bad. Yeah, I wish it was. It's the Ohio Hospital for Epileptics. This is the Ohio Hospital for Epileptics baseball team. It's a photograph. It's in rough shape, but I protected it the way I can. It's kind of dark. The thing about this is that it would be probably worthless unless they weren't wearing the jerseys that I could, say that, all right, I know who these guys are. I don't know them by name, but I know that they're baseball players and probably staff members of Ohio Hospital for Epileptics. That's why it's important to me. Why it's important to you is teamwork, right? You guys are going to have to find allies within your organization or within your different organizations, right? Because you guys are, you're the ARC of New York, so hopefully you communicate with each other. You can share information about what you have. You can be moral supports for each other. This is how we solved this problem, or this is what we found, or look at this, or that type of thing, or this is how we got to where we were able to take care of our stuff. You need to have support of your administration. So don't be afraid to go to them and say that, we're thinking that, we're 50, maybe 60 years old, maybe a little more, right? All our founders are going away. I've gone to maybe 19 DD days, DD days, Buffalo, Johnson, Nagville. One of the common things I'm hearing is that I'm glad there's a museum because, we really want to try to piece together our history, and all our founding members are dying off. I mean, we're at this point not only where there's a graying of the MRPD population, or people with special needs population, we're also at the point where a lot of people, their parents, who took care of them, and NARC is a parent group, you see it, all their stuff, right? We all get old. But the information that talks about the story of your organization can be preserved. So you do want to try to get buy-in from administration that what you want to do is a valuable thing. Your board, they have contacts in the community. you have community supporters, right? A big source of help for you guys documenting your agency's history is current and former employees of the agency. I'm lucky enough to have worked with a woman that I felt really tough because I was her supervisor. I was put in place as her supervisor. And she had worked there. I've worked there 30 years. She's worked there since the beginning. I mean, my employee number starts with a 0, right? Hers probably starts with 4 zeros. She's one of the first 6 employees of what was then SMREC, Services to the Mentally Retarded in Erie County. SMREC. That NYSARC was bad, huh? No. SMREC. Okay? So, but anyway, she told me a lot. She goes, she told me who the old executives were. She kept the photo album. She remembers going door to door asking people if they had a quote unquote retarded child who needed services. You know, past employees, long-standing employees, former employees, they might even be volunteers. You know, they might be able to help you organize your stuff because they go, oh, I remember that year. You know. And maybe they want something to do, or you never know. I mean, so that's one way to tap into past and current. Hey, any local colleges around your organization with a museum studies program? That might be something to look into, right? If you have a local college, see if they have museum studies. Wow, just think if you had an intern, captive little intern, that their dream is to grow up to be a museum professional, so they already know all this tech, they know the technology, or they know the nomenclature, the language. So that's one way to look at getting started. It's one way to look at getting organized. And again, really, probably the most important thing is that you want to know what you have. You want to know what's important to you. You want to organize what you want to keep. You have to protect and sort what you want to keep in some sort of system. There's systems that exist out there already, but there's also your way. There's, you can set up your own system as long as you are systematic about it. So, if you have any questions, and I don't know if I've used up all my time, just about, I'd be glad to answer them. My name's Doug Platt. Here's my email address, which is found on, I left over a bunch of business cards on that table if you want to grab them. Another thing, we are the Museum of Disability History. We're our own nonprofit, even though we have a parent company. We're always looking for members. You could want to become a member. Check us out at our website, museumdisability.org. Like us on Facebook. Follow our Twitter. But if you want to, get in touch with me. Pick one of my business cards. I'd be glad to support you. If you help support the museum, I'll be more than happy. I'll feel obligated to support you. So that type of thing. So if you guys have any questions, we got a couple minutes. If you want to call it a day and sick of hearing me talk, I don't blame you.
You got a question over here, Doug?
Other than the passport software, do you know of anything a little lower end that might not be as professional quality for museum purposes, but for archival?
I'd really...
Access.
I'd say that Past Perfect is the only one I really know. You could probably look on the internet. There's probably things. There's also, like I said, using Word documents and Excel spreadsheets. And that's how I actually, before we got Past Perfect, that's how I kept track of our collection. Yes.
Okay, I have $1 million question, I think. We at NYSARC, we have a very large library, and I'll be talking to you more about that at some point because we're downsizing, so that's a whole other discussion. However, one of my really big concerns now that we're going to electronic this and email that, how do you document our future, our history now? We're kind of losing our history in the last few years because We don't print things anymore. Everything's in emails, everything's in an e-newsletter. How do you continue to archive your history even though it's your current history?
Say you send out your newsletter in a PDF, right? Why not save it to the disk? Then you can label the disk NYSARC newsletters. You know,
Do you do that like monthly, annually? Do you?
whoever sends out your newsletter can do it every time they do it. They go, oh, I'll just save it to this.
Into a hard drive.
Bam. You know, email. You're probably going to have to talk to human resources as well as your IT department about their policies on the retention of emails, because I know that our agency has. Like, if you don't look at it, or you open it and you look at it, it lives there for 90 days and the system kicks it out because, you know, it's obsolete, that type of thing. You know, it's too old. Probably should have done something about it. Or, important emails, I save to a folder. Save it from a folder to whatever data retrieval system you want. So in order to stay current with the times, is you use the technology of the times, because like that record album, eventually, just like my Betamax tapes that I also have tapes from TV tapings that were done of the Western New York Independent Living Center that I have, until I find somebody at a TV station willing to help me out, I'm not even going to be able to look at them to get them transferred to digital. So you want to stay a step ahead of that by taking your digital information and storing it on what's current. So hopefully, when the next jump is, that you can change it from that platform to the new, meet the new laws platform, whatever it is. Yes.
What is that picture?
That picture is James M. Bowles, founder of the Museum of Disability History. This is some hippie. This is David McHardigan, and he is a big part of our cemetery restoration and preservation efforts. Grave matters. And what we're there, we're at the Niagara County Almshouse Cemetery. And one of the things we do, Dave spearheads it, is that right now they're working on Craig County for epileptics, or Groveland Correctional Facility it is now. They're restoring the cemetery there. They're cleaning up the stones, and, getting them upright from being knocked over. So that's another effort of preserving institutional and people who were institutionalized histories. I thought that'd be a nice way to end the presentation, but also give some credit to, there are a lot of different ways to preserve the organizational history. And it's not all indoors either, so sometimes you can dress sloppy, go outside. Any other questions?
Thank you.
So,